to end up doing such a big show in London was incredible.
2,000 people, Aaron show. I couldn't get the grin off my face.
You could see every face.
The pinnacle.
The best show.
This is good. I like this.
It was great. It was amazing. I couldn't believe it. The tour that we'd been on was, well, called the X Tour, because that was the album that we were promoting at the time. But the tour itself had been running, well, for quite a few months, I think, at that point.
We'd been touring for the X album for about 14 months, I think, and we'd had a small break, and we went back just for a 3-week sort of stint in that summer in July of '91.
I don't think tired, I don't think is quite the right word at that point, as I think that we were actually on quite a good roll. We were playing really well and really enjoying the concerts that we were doing.
We did headlined a whole bunch of festivals. We played Berlin for the first time. We played Vienna for the first time.
It was probably one of the longest tours we did in the whole scheme of things. You know, sure, we had a few weeks off here and there, but really we were out for a really long time. And it was kind of the culmination and the end of it. So from that point of view, I think we could sort of see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we were running for it, you know what I mean?
You could see that the band were getting to that point where they had that playing momentum, that rapport on stage that had come from so many years. So by the time that we got to knowing we were playing Wembley, or the band was playing Wembley Stadium and we were going to record it, everyone was very, very confident.
I remember going out to the stadium the day before for sort of sound check. We had to do it the day before because the show obviously started sort of around lunchtime on the day, and we got out there and just seeing Wembley Stadium sort of empty, but just I've never seen so many people and vans and trucks and just equipment and cameras, and it was actually, I think that kind of gave me more butterflies going out to do the sound check that day than actually the day of the show, just because it was sort of like, whoa, it is big, it's going to be huge.
I'm not really a big fan of sound checks. So look, don't get me wrong, I like to make sure everything's working properly and that we have the best sort of, sound possible and all that sort of stuff. And I do it when that's the reason. But when a tour is up and running and you're doing the same sort of gigs every night, shouldn't really be a need for it, because it just means you've got to hang around the show ages before, and I find that kind of tiring, I personally like to just get there, walk out, do my thing, split.
Hey, another sound check.
When we got to the stadium for sound check, when I sort of came through the bottom part where the barricade is for the safety barricade in front of the stage, and looked back, I realised, okay, I think we've really outdone ourselves here. A lot of PA, a lot of lights, and even just the stage production was already pretty extensive. We went, really wide because we had scrims with the side of the stage and big PA, and it was pretty massive, yeah.
Sound checking at Wembley was actually a trip, I'd sound check there again tomorrow, even without playing a gig afterwards. We had enough crew there to make it fill out a small club here,
You know the back, mate, I'll drive.
We did do a run of shows at Wembley Arena. Not that long before that. I can't remember how many it was, maybe 5 or 6, something like that. But we never sort of, I don't think the idea was to say, well, we're going to do these shows at Wembley Arena and then go do this Wembley Stadium show. I think what happened was just the interest in the band was swelling and building, and we thought, well, why not? You know, so we ended up doing that. It was fairly organic, I think, actually.
The feeling was, this is Wembley. We'd all seen Wembley as kids in one shape or another, whether it was Live Aid, whether it was an FA Cup final. So the idea of this Australian band from the northern beaches of Sydney getting to a point of playing a show like this, there was a lot of pressure. But the pressure was a very confident pressure. And so it really felt like this was going to be the one. And there were certain things that we did before the show that we were so confident about that we knew it was happening. Like we booked recording time the next day to do another song. Andrew and I and Michael were working, and with the rest of the band, actually working on a song called Shining Star during sound checks and things like that. But all at that same point, knowing that Wembley Stadium was around the corner and going to happen.
Growing up as a kid, there was only a few venues that reached you back on your black and white television back here in the 70s, and that one was Wembley Stadium, the other was Madison Square Garden, so we'd already kind of played multiple nights at Madison Square Garden, so to finally get to Wembley Stadium and to sell it out, and it really felt like we'd really achieved something quite amazing.
Come over here.
Michael, she's lusted after him for years.
You've lusted after him?
Yeah. She has lusted after him. It's been a nightmare at school. The video is on all the time. Everyone in the house. That's good because he'll know at last.
I've got all
where
the
his love
videos.
lies.
My mum's expecting the wedding soon. Okay?
She wants him around for tea just to see if he's alright.
I'm actually 5 foot. I hear you like short girls, so.
Right, favourite band, who do you think? INXS of Ross. Check out the t-shirts. 1, 2, 3, and one other one underneath in the bottom as well.
I think what to us was really quite overwhelming too was that show of support from our London fans and from the British fans that INXS has. It was really great. It was amazing. It was I couldn't believe it.
Who have we come to see? Who have we come to see?
The whole Wembley show really was sort of almost a very emotional thing in that we'd had a hard time in England with the press for years. In fact, at one point we actually decided to sort of ban the UK going there for about 18 months or something, because we just got so sick of the press, I guess the English Australian rivalry or whatever. So in some ways, selling out Wembley was kind of a, sort of like, take that. The media can be very harsh on you there, and I think we perhaps got the wrong idea of the feeling from normal people, towards the group. So, and I think that worked out really well.
Mike, I'm going to ask you a really boring question. How did you spend the day? What did you do today?
I tried to get out of bed for about 4 hours and eventually got out of bed. I went shopping for 15 minutes and came back.
Yeah, you're quite keyed up.
No, I'm trying to treat it just like any other show, actually.
Yeah. What was it like playing Wembley? To 85,000 people?
I don't know yet.
Don't know. Will you be excited when you get there, do you think?
Yeah, I'm excited already. I'm just not shy. No, it'll be great. It'll be very, very, very scary.
Are you looking forward to the gig tonight?
Yes, a little bit on the nervous side, but we've got the old English summer weather for us. It's lovely.
He was there.
The nervous energy really kicked in on the bus when we got on at Carlton Towers where we were staying in London. we had a large bus to take us to the gig, not limos, just a big sort of bus. And that's where the nervous energy kicked in, because everyone who was associated with it at that side of it, production level on a large sense, and the band were on the bus. And when we got to Hammersmith, everyone was still buzzing along before we got to Wembley. But it's when we picked up the police motorcycle escort that you could really feel the bus rise. You know, you felt something was happening. And then the closer we got to the stadium, it's a large stadium. You've got 70, 80,000 people streaming in. So you had the feel of it coming in from the outside. The show had been going all day. Police escort coming in. Adrenaline starting to pump.
For your own safety, please walk across the pitch.
In actual fact, on that day, I went out ahead of everyone else. I got out there about 4:30, I think, in the afternoon, just because I wanted to see some of the bands that were playing as well. But also, I like to actually go to a venue and sort of get a feel for it and kind of soak up the vibes and everything.
What I remember backstage was one of the more confronting things was that there must have been about 250 people walking around at different points in time. I think when anyone in show business goes through that, that initial fame kicker, when you get involved in that sort of gravy train of people thing, it's bewildering, and people want to be attached to things that are successful. It's human nature, And there was also, I think, partly due to the other bands' entourages and their tour parties as well, not just ours. There's all kinds of people walking around. These days it'd be a kind of security nightmare, I suppose, but then it was all, part of the character of the experience, I think.
MTV aren't allowed up here, right? Are they up here?
This the hour and 2 hours waiting, backstage. I hate that. I personally hate it. I prefer to walk in and just get on stage. We're just waiting around and there's people milling about and just talking to you because they're nervous too, and they're sort of asking you questions. And I just don't want to, talk and just have, idle conversation. I just want to come lock in and do the job.
The dressing room beforehand was quite special. There were a lot of people around in the dressing room. Wembley management had presented the band with statuettes at Wembley Stadium saying this is going to be great. Michael Long then was very clever, who was the tour manager, in clearing all the ancillary people out of the studio. And the band and I talked, Chris talked, basically, let's go, let's do this thing.
I don't know what instruments it is.
It was one of those things where you just sort of wanted to get out there and do it, It's the way it is with touring for me, and I think most of the band, it's all the travel and all the promotion and the press and stuff you do is just part and parcel to sort of keep you somewhat occupied.
Hi, it's Michael. And I'm Tim. We're from INXS, and here we are on Saturday at Summer INXS playing live at Wembley Stadium. Here's our new single with a teaser on MTV.
I remember at one point grabbing a beer and a cigarette and going to the toilet and just locking the door and just sort of sitting there to be by myself, smoking and drinking, and just to be able to spend a little bit of time to focus on the day rather than people being, coming at you for this or that or whatever. And I remember just sitting there later on, a few years back, a friend of mine, Mark Rankin, used to be in a Scottish band called Gun, the lead singer, and he said to me, so what was it like playing in Wembley Stadium, And I said, well, I don't know, I spent a lot of the time sitting in the toilet. Actually, smoking and drinking. And he said, so you mean at your pinnacle of your career, what you do is you sit in the toilet by yourself, do you? And I said, yeah, I guess so.
How do you play these things?
I'll get a nice shot of his bum. I'll get it.
Oh, I'm sorry, but you can't mess with my body, it's all mine.
We're gonna make Michael wear this tonight.
Oh, show it to me.
This one. It's gonna be nice and smelly after a concert. 2 hours.
Just got to get my thing right here. Okay, ready to go.
Jesus and Children of the Stones.
I've always had this thing about sort of mindset and being positive and, And, you know, Jesus was a really positive person, tried to preach a good thing to a great many people to improve their lives, you know. And it was kind of my way of, like, saying, dude rocks, you know, like. So I had these shirts printed up.
Easy, was this happening as Jesus or
decision? Just suddenly had this idea and I thought, look, I'm going to wear a Jesus shirt. Does anyone mind? What? It was the response from the rest of the band. And I said, you know, yeah, I just think, you know, the guy's kind of cool, you know, he's got long hair, a beard, you know. They nailed him to a cross, you know, he did a lot of great stuff for people. He's the supposed son of God, you know. Like, how much better can you get?
Maybe you should have got a Mohammed shirt made up.
Oh, that would have been fucking perfect. Can we have a Mohammed t-shirt in 15 minutes? Judith,
That's
this is
embroidery.
a Life of Wardrobe goal. We'd like a Mohammed t-shirt in 15 minutes. Thank you.
Oh yes, the infamous red suit, which unfortunately it's been hanging in my wardrobe ever since. And I've, you know, I sort of, I don't know if I was going to out functions or whatever, you know, and look in the wardrobe and see the red suit and go, I can't wear it. Everyone saw it on the Wembley, you know, the Wembley video. I can't wear it. So it sat there for years, and then about 2 years ago, I thought, oh, it's time I clean my wardrobe out. I need some room, you know, and I pulled out all these suits, and the moths had gotten to it, and it had little holes all through it, you know. I was really, really disappointed. But I've still got it.
What about the external cockpits?
The external cockpit?
The indoor, what do you call it? Indoor
The aluminium cockpit. Turbochargers and integral turnip booster.
Since Joe lost his legs in that terrible boating accident, he's got these
There was one
replacement thighs
earlier.
Couldn't live without him. Otherwise his knees are up here.
Yeah, the other way.
Yeah, I just wanted to pull that side.
It could be a new thing. I can start a whole new thing. 70,000 people will go home and put the belts back to the front at the end of the show. Every time, I see your face,
Could you please be quiet? We're trying to have a conversation over here.
2 days beforehand, on our way to London from, I don't know where we were, somewhere in Europe, and we're, you know, flying to London, and I was getting off the bus at the airport, and I tripped and went flat on my face, and twisted my ankle, like, severely. The worst I've ever had a twisted ankle. And so it just freaked me out. Like, the 2 days before, I was going, oh God, I'm not going to do the show. I'm not going to be able to move and whatever else. And anyway, luckily, some physio kind of doctor guy came along prior to, you know, going on stage at Wembley and strapped me up and strapped my ankle up, and it was fine. Just went quite sober.
Before I even started playing music, when I was watching, you know, the old black and white footage of Mark Bolan live or Zeppelin live or Deep Purple live, you always aspired to Wembley Stadium. And the fact is we had played there with Queen for 2 nights, and that we were the first band on, and that was the death spot.
I stood down the front where Brian May normally stood, you know, and the Queen fans in England are rabid, you know what I mean? And we were like dodging bottles and loaves of bread, tomatoes. What's this, INXS? Who are these guys, you know what I mean? And we had to do 2 nights. So after the first night, we knew it was coming up the second night. I nearly wore a raincoat.
Well, last time we played here, they threw loads of bread and tomatoes at us, and now they're giving us little trophies and awards. Thank you very much.
Thank you. To sell it out ourselves was something, and still no Australian band's ever done it, and never will, because it's gone now. I think if you ask any member of the band, they'll, you know, straight off the top of their head, their favourite gig, most successful gig, it will always be Wembley Stadium.
It wasn't really so much the size of the audience, it was the fact that it was us in England and it was INXS Day on BBC radio, you know, and that was blasting backstage in the dressing rooms.
No, it's the radio. It seems like you can't avoid it these days. I mean, they're playing some snippet from an Australian.
INXS are the most successful band ever to have come out of Australia.
Is this true?
Worldwide, they've sold over 7 million albums. Formed back in '77, their first hit in Britain was New Sensation 11 years later. Still with the same lineup,
Yeah, they're mixing it with Australian
they've built their base by constant touring. Their tour manager, Gary Grant, has been with them since the early days.
There was 7 of us, sort of like, you know,
He used to be our tour manager.
one little car, and then we used to lay the guitar across the back seat, and
No, it was him, not the
go up and
guitar.
down the country doing all the various shows, and all having to pitch in to buy fish and chips and sharing 1 can of beer and whatever it was at that stage. It was quite interesting.
What kind of gigs did you do in those days? Presumably it was sort of small.
We knew there was 16 cameras and a helicopter with a camera in it out there to film it. And, you know, someone offered to fly Michael and I in on a helicopter before the show to do this, that and the other. It was like someone was going like, how nervous can we make her? Come on, you know?
Superstitious, yes. I always put my left boot on first.
Serious?
Yeah. Always. I put it on the right foot once and I had a really great time. I'll never do that again.
I remember people were saying, you know, like, what are your expectations of Wembley and that sort of thing? I'll never forget Michael saying, well, I've got actually really poor eyesight, you know, so without my glasses, I can't tell. All I see out there is a fuzz, you know.
Did you know that all lead singers are blind and smoke cigarettes? Can't see the audience, I have no idea. You know, this is all sort of abstract concept to me, really. It's theory. It's absolute theory because I actually can't see more than about 10 foot. So I haven't seen more than 10 foot since about 78.
You started smoking?
Yeah. And I never knew I couldn't see it, and I got my eyes tested once, and I was actually blind. I thought everybody saw like that. And I got contact lenses, and I was like, wow, trees have leaves from 100 foot, and all this stuff. And I lay down in a park and sort of cried. It was a beautiful experience. And then wrote lots of poetry about trees and leaves, and then I did a concert, and terrified me. I could see them, you know, they do this, they go, and all this sort of shit all. And so I took my contact lenses out on stage and I've never worn them since. I wear prescription glasses and stuff, but I haven't seen an audience for a good 10 years. It's my secret. If I see that fucking audience out there, I fucking run!
Because Michael's thing was, because he couldn't see how massive the venue was, he just performed to the first 20 rows, and that's what was always so intimate.
Michael had a lot of vision, maybe, not necessarily physically, but he really knew how to really throw, to people and connect. And I think he was really on form that particular night.
I'd like to be in an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, for sure. I don't want to cut. That's all I want in life. What do you want? Would you like to be Arnold Schwarzenegger? Married into the Kennedy family. We're going to get cut out of the 2 biggest movies in history. I mean, what the fuck am I in this business for? We're getting paid £1.4 million for this tonight. I'm getting $5 grand. $5 fucking grand. $5 grand. That'll pay my fucking champagne bill at the hotel.
I remember asking Chris, who was managing us at the time, Chris Murphy, I remember asking him, we must have made a lot of money tonight, and him nervously shuffling around saying, well, because we did talk about it. Obviously, we knew it was being filmed, and then he said, well, we had, obviously the production was expensive, and I realised what he was saying. At the time, I was sort of thinking, we could have made all that money. But years later, he had a lot of foresight, because in actual fact, we wouldn't have all this to talk about. And we captured a moment that was very important in our career, in a point of our career that was really significant. So I think, a lot of credit's got to go to that, actually.
For me, in a way, I approached that show until I got out there on the stage as just another show, as part of the tour. I mean, it was, the thing was, we never recorded a show like this with that many cameras, 35 mil, and the quality that and the brilliant job Mark Opitz did made it all, you know, in retrospect, I felt that way. Watching it, I went, whoa, gee, I didn't realise it looked like that. You know, I try personally to keep my head around the space of it's just another show.
Right from the second I climbed through that little, there's a little trap behind my kit, and there's a little sort of cubby I could sit there and wait before I go on stage. And I went through the curtains, walked on to the drum riser and sat down, and because I was the first guy on stage, and I was like, okay, another day at the office, you know.
You know, I wasn't actually that nervous until probably that, you know, 30 seconds where we're actually sort of standing behind the stage about to go on, and, you know, John starts up, you know, his drum loop for Guns, and that's when sort of I think it sort of goes, woo.
You try to sort of like just with a leisurely gait walking out there, you know, but you see the audience and their enthusiasm, and it's hard not to run. You feel a bit like a football player or something running out onto the pitch, and it was that kind of a vibe really. And then when you saw that, the way the audience were going off, it just sort of kind of fueled the band. And you know, it was one of those rare occasions where you feel like everyone had a really good gig.
As soon as I walked out there and just saw, you know, over 75,000 people just sort of with their hands in the air, and just it's an unbelievable feeling, you know, and you forget everything. Just, well, not the music, but you forget everything else, you know.
Like when John started playing Guns in the Sky at the beginning of the show, you know, he was right on it, man. He was playing some really groovy backbeats and stuff like that. And we came out, that was a jam session, you know, like, I mean, really, we hadn't planned that. We didn't really, and this is the first song of the night, you know, and here we are jamming. You know what I'm talking about? So we're going out there and it's like, ding, digga, digga, ding, ding, digga, digga, ding. You know, and we're just like, oh no, we'll take your lead, Johnny. Ba, 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 da. You know what I mean? It's kind of cool, you know, that's what I live for.
We got the best drum in the world, and it's always been better for the sound guy up front if you go out and stagger the intros, like, so the drums start and he gets the drum sound and the bass comes in, and so we did it that way. And the fact is, and it really helped loosen up the whole feeling instead of going 1, 2, 3, shit, you know. It was just like kind of going to a party.
I think it was great weather for a gig because there was cloud, I think, which kept, and there was no wind, which meant all the sound would sound great, you know, because it wasn't phasing with the PA, you know, it was just really, and it was still.
As this concert was going down, I was going, I cannot believe how good the band is playing. And obviously it was because the whole unit was so well tuned at this point, as I said before, gathering momentum. And it's from Guns in the Sky to the end, it was just a sensational concert.
Looking at 85,000 people bouncing around singing, you know, songs that, you know, you've just recorded a year ago, sure, it feels great, you know.
I think for INXS it's always been more about music and the performance of that than really attitude, and you know, and so I think that's helped us to cross, you know, international boundaries too. And it's about music, it's about performing, it's about people having a good time. You know, I think that's what matters, and I think that night we did that.
Don't you know what you're doing? You got a death wish. Yeah. See
the point of the show at Wembley that makes it significant is that, first of all, it was shot well on film. It was really, really done well by David Mallet and his crew, really well, and well recorded by Mark Opitz and the people who were doing the recording for us at the time. Did a great job, and those guys doing that back-end media stuff for us was brilliant, because it really helped us to have something now, to this day, that is important. First of all, obviously Michael's not with us, unfortunately, but neither is Wembley Stadium. And so the fact that all that got captured intact is incredible in itself. That's what makes it significant to me, and that we played well. Michael, did an amazing job up front, really incredible. And we played well, and it sounds good, it looks good, and I think that's what makes it special, is the combination of those factors.
Someone like me who'd started early with the band and gone through all that and seen the band develop from clubs in Wollongong and Sydney to get to a point at Wembley Stadium, you cannot imagine how proud I was to be part of that and to be there, and how proud I was of that band to see what they achieved in that particular moment in time. It was unbelievable, and you just watch the sea of people. In hindsight, there were so many great decisions made that weren't purpose-built. For instance, the fact that the show started in daytime and finished into night. It allowed the lighting to take the show. It allowed a much more variety in the pictures, the way it came out. So all those additives, it was a band playing at a gig. But when you add the whole thing, and as Michael says, this is the biggest pub gig we've ever played, and that's what they are, a pub rock band playing in the highest echelon you could possibly play at. So thereby, there's no greater testament to a pub rock band than playing packed out Wembley Stadium and really killing it.
We had a really good time, and we're doing more. Everybody in the band has their moments where they do things that are a little bit selfish to create humour on stage or whatever. We have our own sort of private jokes on stage that keep us going, And Michael's was, walking back out and grabbing a guitar and playing crap, really loud, and then it sounded a little good. Very grounding experience when you're playing Wembley Stadium. Jodie was 3.5 or 4 months pregnant, and we were out shopping and buying, toys for the future baby, etc. And during about the 4th song or 5th song, she started losing the baby. Her borders broke, and so she was whisked off to the infirmary. And then I played the whole show and walked off at the end, and thinking, wow, I'm gassed. What a great concert. And then as soon as I walked down the stairs, 4 policemen grabbed me, and Chris Murphy, our then manager, sort of said, you've got to go with them. So I'm like, what have I done? And straight through the entire audience, around the outskirts of the stadium, as the audiences were leaving, in my gear, straight through the whole crowd to the back. The infirmary was at the far end of the stadium, and there's Jodie there directing, she's okay, but she's directing all the kids who've taken the brown acid instead of the green acid, and she's talking all these kids through their bad trip. It was just quite amazing. It was the infirmary was full of about 40 or 50 kids, all there because they'd been sold bad drugs. And there's Jodie in the middle on directing traffic and looking after the kids. But we almost lost our first child, who's Lucy's now nearly 13. So by the time I got down to the party room at the hotel, everyone was over enjoying themselves, and I was just so grounded. It was I'll have a beer now. It was quite funny when you look back at it.
You were great.
You were great.
I think when you get that kind of pressure before a show, you do feel an enormous sense of relief that you simply got through it and did what you did, and enjoyed it. And then, you go, great, fantastic. I loved that. That was wonderful. Let's do it again. But things don't always go that smoothly. And shit happens, and you get stuck in it. That's real life. But that night, just everything clicked. It just was, it was a good feeling.
I'm extremely proud of it. And I'm proud that, when my kids see it and they go, who's that guy? Where's the hair gone, Dad? But also when other bands drag it out, hire my studio, drag it out and put it on, and they're all sheepish about, I saw that concert, my God, and you sort of put at the back of your mind that that's what you did, because that was then. And it was a fair while ago now, obviously, and also, as I said before, we didn't release it. We didn't come home going, we just never a band to come back bragging about what we did. We always snuck back home and kept it quiet.
A bunch of Australian guys from the suburbs, took a band around the world and ended up playing a show like that, and we did it. And we did it together as a group of people, and we pulled it off.
That day, Wembley Stadium was a definitive moment for INXS, which captured the essence of INXS. I'll never forget it.
My philosophy on INXS now, and I think for all of us, the good thing is just to be what you are, and to be alive and to be performing music, and for people to like that. You're really lucky. Doesn't matter if there's 5 people there, 10 people there, 10 million people, 10 billion people, the universe. It's just as long as you're happy and you like doing what you're doing, then it's great. It's all good,
Two worlds collided, and they could never tear us apart.